I want to talk to you today if you're tired. If you're tired. Maybe you're tired because you have kids and you don't need any other reason than that one. That's enough if you're tired. Maybe you're tired because you have some relationships in your life that are strained and that's got you exhausted. Maybe you're tired because your job is stressful and it just keeps coming and coming and coming. Maybe you're tired because your life is going so fast you feel like you can never slow down, you can never stop, and you just keep going, and it's got you exhausted. Maybe you're tired because you're waiting on something and waiting just drains the life out of you. Maybe you're tired because you're losing some kind of battle and you just keep losing and losing is getting to you. Maybe you're tired because you're hurting. And maybe it's not even just that you're hurting like in some neutral sense. Maybe you're tired because you're hurting because someone's hurting you and they just kind of keep stabbing you in the same spot, and that's got you weary. Maybe you're tired because you're worrying about something and the amount of energy your brain is spending has got you tired. Maybe you're tired because a lot of people rely on you. It's always, I need something, I want something, I'm texting you, I'm calling you, I'm tugging on your shirt to ask for something that I can't reach, something. Maybe you're tired because you live in Northeast Ohio and it's January. And it's been a while since it's been above freezing. There's 7 layers of snow outside and the only colors are white and brown and gray. Hear me out. How about Mosaic Cocoa Beach? What do you guys think? No, it's all right, maybe. We gotta go further south. I feel like First Service wasn't that into it either. The Florida Keys, Bahamas? I don't know, we'll figure it out. Bahamas isn't that far. Whatever to avoid this. I wanna talk to you today if you're tired. Now the scary part, everybody gets tired. Everybody gets tired. That's not a unique experience, and that's not even a bad experience. It's okay to be tired. The dangerous part about tired is something that comes with it. There's a mounting temptation when you're tired, and that temptation is to quit. When you're tired, you feel like quitting. And it seems like they go hand in hand. The more tired you are, the more you want to quit. And I don't know if you've reflected on this much, but one of the things I was thinking about this week is I actually think sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between being tired and wanting to quit. That actually sometimes I just feel like I'm tired and I feel like I want to quit, and I don't know that they're actually different, but they are different things. I don't know if you've ever thought about that before, but it's really dangerous when you start to get these two things mixed up. So I want to specifically talk to you today if you're tired has you contemplating quitting. And I want to answer the question, how do you fight when you feel like you got nothing left? How do you fight the urge to quit, the urge to give up, the urge to run, the urge to pack it in, the urge to throw in the towel, the urge to stop pressing, the urge to surrender, the urge to quit? We're in the book of Joshua, and what we're going to find in the part of the story that we're in today is we're going to see 4 things that I think the devil wants to use to cause you to quit. 4 things that your spiritual enemy is going to throw at you to get you to give up. 4 spiritual battles that you got to win if you want to keep going. This is week 3 of our series in Joshua. The point we're at today, Joshua has just led the people of Israel into the promised land. That's where we're at. So there's this land that God promised them. They just make it in. They're like one step in. They look up and there is a giant walled hostile city sitting in front of them. One step in. That's where they're at. So the story picks up in Joshua chapter 6, verse 1. Now the gates of Jericho were tightly shut because the people were afraid of the Israelites. No one was allowed to go out or in. So this city, this walled city, is sitting here right in front of them. They're on high alert. They're hunkered down for assault. The walls are not only high, but thick. The gates are strong. They are not friendly. They are not happy that Israel is there. Joshua has never led an army before. Israel has never planned a siege before. Jericho is a problem. Jericho is a problem. And that's something you need to look at in the story. Like they just got here. They just showed up in the promised land and immediately they're presented with a problem. And this kind of shows the first thing that can cause you to want to quit. And it happens very early when you start to try and do something, when you set out after something. The first thing the devil wants to do to you is he wants to block your vision. He wants to block your vision. Because what just happened is they stepped into the promised land and immediately there's a city. You ever notice that? It doesn't even matter how big the thing is. If it gets in your face, it can block your vision. Well, they couldn't see the promised land now. All they can see is this city. And there's a whole land behind it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that God wants for them. There's all this land, all this opportunity out there, but they can't see it now. All they can see is the city that doesn't want them there. Did you ever notice how discouraging it is to hit like an obstacle early in something when you just set out to do something? You know, if you're a parent, you like turn off your street and the kid goes, I have to go to the bathroom like that. So no, we just left, right? I don't want to stop yet. Or you're just starting to try and eat like right, and somebody invites you to some party that has like all your favorite food and you're like, I can't do this yet. Like what you feel, and I've felt this too, like you want to have some momentum first. I don't want to hit an obstacle like, I want to, it would have been nice to have a couple of little towns first to attack before you get to a big giant walled city. But no, right off the rip, they've got a massive problem hitting them in the face. And it's blocking their ability to see what God wanted to do. It's blocking their vision. Now, what vision is, give you a real easy definition. Vision is just the ability to see a better future. And if you want to make it specific to like a Christian thing, to what God, it's the ability to see what God's going to do in your life. And God had given them a vision. Hey, here's the promised land. You guys are going to live here. You're going to flourish here. You'll be my people. I'll be your God. They have a vision for what this is supposed to look like. But they can't see it right now. Because instead of the ability to see a better future, they're actually doing something else. So make maybe a weird statement here, but I think vision is kind of like the better looking cousin of anxiety. I know you might be like, wait, vision and anxiety have nothing to do with each other. Hold on a minute, I actually think they're pretty similar. If vision is the ability to see a better future, all anxiety is the ability to see a worse one, right? Both of them, you're using your imagination to see into the future. Vision is looking for a good one from God. Anxiety is looking for all the ways something can go wrong. So actually, they're pretty similar. So here's my argument. If you're good at anxiety, and in this case, I mean bad at it, I guess. If you're good at coming up with all the possible ways that things could go wrong, and you're really good at allowing that stuff to spiral in your mind, I want to argue that if you're good at that, you can also be good at vision. Because that means you have a powerful imagination. Currently, you're using it to come up with all of the negative things that could possibly happen. But what if you use that power for good and you said, no, I'm going to use this ability to look into the future and I'm going to try and imagine better futures. I'm going to try and imagine what God could possibly do with this situation. So when you get into something, when you start off on something and Satan hits you in the face and tries to block your vision, man, the idea is you got to hold on to that thing that God wants to do. That the reason you started, don't lose it right away. Because Satan wants you to stop before you get one step in. He wants you to immediately go, oh man, maybe God didn't want us to do this after all. Don't let him do that. Don't let him throw you off that fast. This is your first urge to quit. You're gonna lose the ability to see the reason you started. He's trying to stop you before you get anywhere. Don't let him. Don't let him. All right, so here they are. People of Israel just crossed the Jordan. They're staring down Jericho. Now, the Bible doesn't fill in a bunch of blanks. It'd be cool if you got like all the details, like they get over there, there's a city, and like you got some, I'd love to hear like the back conversations, like the behind the scenes stuff. Did Joshua like meet with some kind of war council and they're like coming up with plans? What the conversations around the campfire were like? I would love to hear that. We don't get any of that. But what we do get is God gives them a battle plan. God shows up and says, hey, whatever you were planning, here's the plan. And God shares that with them starting in verse 3. God's plan. Drake, God's plan. Whatever, you guys wake up. Sheesh. You and your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. On the 7th day, you're to march around the town 7 times with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horn, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse and the people can charge straight into town. That's it. That's the plan. Did you catch it? I feel like this is like God, like in the huddle, like drawing up a play, you know? He's got like sticks and stuff. He's like, here's what you're going to do. And he's giving everybody their routes. He's like, it's just a circle. break. All right, let's go do it. 6 days, you're going to walk around the town 1 time each day. And then on the 7th day, you're going to walk around 7 times. And then you're all going to yell, and the walls are going to fall down, and you win. Go. That's it. Now, I just want to acknowledge, I don't know if you have any experience with like wars and stuff, or sieges, or attacking walled cities, but this sounds like a weird plan to me. Sounds a little, I don't know. I don't think this is what I would have come up with. I don't think this is what anybody would have come up with. There's a lot of ways to attack a walled city. Ladders, ramps, battering rams, fire. You could wait them out. You could starve them out. There's lots of things you could do. But marching around a city for 7 days and not firing a single shot is not on the list. So I just want to point out, like, God gives this plan, but it's odd. And I think it would even take faith to start to execute this plan, because they're going to look silly. I don't know if you've ever encountered that. Maybe that's just where you're at right now with your journey of faith with God. Maybe you feel like the next thing that God is calling you to do is just going to make you feel silly or look stupid. And I want to say that's actually not abnormal. Don't feel weird about that. I bet you anything there was a lot of Israelites who were like, what are we supposed to do? Really? We're going to do that? Like, they felt like idiots doing the thing that God called them to do. But I think sometimes you have to have enough faith to look a little silly, to follow God in what he wants you to do. So, luckily, they do. Pick up the story in verse 8. Here's what happens. After Joshua spoke to the people, 7 priests with the ram's horns started marching in the presence of the Lord, blowing the horns as they marched. And the ark of the Lord's covenant followed behind them. So they're off to the races here. Verse 9, some of the armed men marched in front of the priests with the horns and some behind the ark with the priests continually blowing the horns. Verse 10, love this. Do not shout, do not even talk, Joshua commanded. Not a single word from any of you until I tell you to shout, then shout. I just want you guys to know I have quoted this verse almost verbatim to my children every car ride. When I read that this week, I'm like, I feel so much more spiritual now, because I can just tell them I'm quoting a Bible verse. Do not shout, do not even talk, not a single word out of any of you. Just tell them that's Joshua 6:10. I'm just quoting Bible to you guys, so stop talking. And he does sound like an angry parent here. So they're like not allowed to talk at all. Verse 11, so the ark of the Lord was carried around the town once that day, then everyone returned to the camp that night. Joshua got up early next morning, and the priests again carried the ark of the Lord. So you kind of see this process start to take place. They start to do the thing that God called them to do. Now, we kind of breeze over these. If you've been a Christian for any amount of time, I'm sure you've heard the story of Jericho like a million times. We used to sing a song about it in Sunday school. But we kind of breeze over these verses because we want to get to the good part where they all shout and the walls actually do fall down and God does the thing. But this part right here, this is a really important part of the story. Because this is like that point, like between the promise and the fulfillment of the promise. Between God giving the vision and the fulfillment of the vision, that middle part, that messy middle, where God said he was going to do things, but he hasn't done it yet, and we're not at the end yet, but we're not at the beginning. Now we're kind of in this middle part, and it's kind of messy, and I'm trying to do what God wants me to do, but I feel silly, and it's hard in the middle. The messy middle is a really difficult thing, but you live most of your life in the messy middle, between the promise and the fulfillment of a promise, between the vision that God gave you and the fulfillment of that vision, between the purpose that you feel like he's placed in your heart and actually living that out. You live in this middle part. So this is a really important part of the story. And we actually see in this part of the story a couple of other things that would cause you to want to quit before you see the fulfillment of what God's going to do. And the first thing, because of the way God structured this thing to work, they were supposed to walk around the city 6 times in 6 days. And notice nothing happens. Nothing happens. They walk around, go home, walk around, go home, walk around, go home. So the second thing I think that would cause you to want to quit is a lack of obvious progress. A lack of obvious progress. That could really start to eat away at your ability to keep going. I mean, again, imagine what it would be like to be an Israelite in this army. You go out day one. You go out day one and you walk around the city and like you were excited because you thought, here we go, we're going to do this thing. It's time to like take the land that God's calling us to do. You know, you got like some kind of weapon in your hand. You're like, all right. And you're like, Joshua, what's the battle plan? And Joshua's like, take a lap. Like, all right, you know. You walk around. You just kind of feel like we getting a feel for this. You know, seeing where the weak points are, kind of ducking when they throw stuff at us. I don't know, what are we doing here? And then you get home and you're like, all right, what now? And Joshua's like, go home. You're good. Can you imagine going home to your wife? What did you do today? How'd the battle go? Well, we just walked around. Oh yeah? You should like build anything, shoot anything? No, just getting a feel for it, just kind of go the lay of the land, You'd feel like an idiot. Again, no progress whatsoever. And then also notice that for 6 days they walk around and God doesn't do anything to indicate that he's going to move in any way, right? There's no cracks in the wall. He doesn't do like a mini earthquake at the end of each lap, just kind of let them know, shake the gates a little bit, have a brick or two fall, just let them know that something is happening. God is going to move. They get nothing. There is no evidence of outward progress at all. And when you have that happen in your life, that is really tempting to say, man, I must be doing something wrong. Because when you do what you're supposed to do, you feel like something's supposed to happen, right? And that's what I imagine the people of Israel, like we're doing what God said to do, but nothing's happening. There's no progress, nothing. And immediately, I don't know about you, but I have a little whisper in my mind, I must be doing something wrong. Because if it's not working, then I must be doing something wrong, right? I can't be doing something right, because if I was doing something right, there'd be progress. So here I wanna, if you're in this place, maybe you've set out to do something this year, maybe God's kind of sent you on a journey and you're trying to do the right thing, and right now you don't have any outward evidence that it's doing anything, and maybe you're really discouraged right now. Here, I wanna point something out to you right now. Let me oversimplify this. And if you've been going to Mosaic for any amount of time, you've heard this a bunch, and I just want to keep reminding you of it. God wants to do 3 things in your life, just 3, only 3. He wants to do some things for you, he wants to do some things in you, and he wants to do some things through you. Just those 3 things, for you, in you, and through you. Now, we love a couple of those, right? We love when God does stuff for us, right? Isn't that like the majority of our prayers? God, please do some things for me. I love it. All I got to do is receive. You work, I receive. Love that. Want more of that. God, please do things for me in my life. And another one that I love personally, I love when God works through me. There is no greater thrill on this earth than God deciding to do something on the earth, but he wants to use me to do it. I think, man, that's the highest honor. That's the greatest privilege. It is purpose for me. And I love that when God works through me. But that third one, God wants to work in me. That's like the least fun one. Because I don't know about you, when God does work in my soul, it's typically painful. And it's some kind of like renovation inside of my soul. And God doesn't do little renovations. He doesn't do like, hey, we'll put a coat of paint in here and it'll be fine. No, he's like ripping walls out, He's pulling the floor up. He's like, this electric's got to go. And you're like, what? Like, how expensive is this project? It's a lot. Like, God just rips things to pieces in here. Almost feels like surgery, but no antiseptic, and you're awake the whole time. Like, God's going after it in here. And he wants to change some things in here. So my argument to you is, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and you're pursuing the thing that you feel like God's calling you to pursue and you're not seeing any outward progress, I bet he's working in here. I bet he went, before you see any progress on the outside, he's going to do some work in your soul. And yeah, it's going to be painful. But let me tell you, in my life, as I look back on the things that God has done, like I've had some times in my life where I really wanted God to do something like right now. And I thought he was super wrong, that he wasn't. I thought, God, my time is right, yours is whatever, and you need to do this now. And he didn't. And he did not move in the way I thought he should move. And he did not give me the thing that I thought he should give me when I thought he should give it to me. But now when I look back, I realized from this position, looking back on my life, that, man, if he had given me the thing that I thought he should give me when I thought he should give me, that Adam would have ruined it. I would have destroyed the thing that I thought I wanted right in that moment, that I was not internally ready for him to move in that way in my life. I would have destroyed things. So God had to do some things inside of me in order for me to be able to even properly receive some things outside of me. So don't get too discouraged if you don't see progress on the outside. He might be working in here. And I would just say, man, if that's where you're at, I would ask God the question, hey, God, what are we doing in here? I want to lean into this. I want to be a part of this. I don't want to be unwilling as you start to move around inside my soul. What are you doing in here? Because I want to see you move here, and I want to see you move on the outside. I want to see you move in every area of my life. Lean into it. Lean into it. So that one will get you. No obvious progress on the outside. You might start to want to quit, but just ask God what he's doing on the inside. Now, third thing that'll cause the urge to quit to rise in you. There was a massive important detail in the story. You notice that God gave Joshua the whole battle plan, right? It was verses 3-5. God laid it out. All 7 days, here's what you're supposed to do. Crazy plan, but he gave him the whole plan. But did you notice that like when Joshua relays the plan to the people, he doesn't tell them the whole plan. He only tells them 1 day at a time what to do. I know we didn't read all the verses, but Joshua just tells them today, this is what we're doing. Oh yeah, what's that? Walking around the city. Okay. And then the next day, all right, here's the plan. Repeat. Do the same thing. And again, and again, and again. Joshua tells them the plan 1 day at a time, so nobody in the city knows how long they have to march before God moves. And I want to remind you, the people of Israel are not without faith at this point. They just, if you were here last week, you remember, they crossed over the flooded river Jordan on dry ground. Like God moved the impossible last week. So I don't think they're coming in super skeptical here because they just watched God do the miraculous. But like when you're asking Joshua, all right, what's the battle plan today? And he's like, we're just going to walk around the city. And then he keeps saying that over and over and over again. That would start to wear on you even if you had a lot of faith. And I think this shows us the third thing that can really cause you to want to quit. It's that nobody told you how long you had to go. Nobody told you how long you're going to have to march before you saw the miracle. Nobody told you how many times you have to walk around the city before I get to see God move in some spectacular way. And when you don't know how long you have to go, man, it can really get you to a place mentally where you just kind of want to stop. You ever, when you're going somewhere, you type in where you're going into your GPS. My wife types in every single destination into the GPS, even if she knows where she's going, which is crazy, but that's fine. We argue about it all the time. Like, you know where you're going. What are you doing? I have the opposite. I try to type in where we're going when I reach a point in the journey where I don't know where to go. I will go the whole way as far as I know, and then I'm like, I guess I'm lost, so we have to type it in. I'm total opposite. It's super fun. You can imagine the side seat driving that happens. Also, she doesn't like how I brake and how fast I go. Anyways, so you have a GPS, and it tells you right at the bottom when you type it in, you hit go, it tells you how long before you reach your destination, right? Or some of you read time to beat, right? You're just trying to beat the time. So you know how far you have to go before you reach your destination. Wouldn't it be cool if there was like a thing for your life for that? Not just Google Maps, but like Google Life. You could type in like, how long do I have to like sacrificially love my spouse before my marriage gets better? Click. That's a long time, right? Wouldn't that be cool? Like, how many desserts do I have to skip before I get abs? Click. And you're like, oh my gosh, like that's, how many times do I have to tell my kid the same thing before they actually listen? And you're like, wouldn't that be amazing if you had an app that told you what the number was? Because at least then you'd know. You could say, all right, it's 1,000 million more that I'm going to have to tell you to do this thing, but you eventually will do it. That would be amazing. But we don't have that, right? Almost nothing in your life that's of substance in the spiritual do you know how long it's going to take before God moves. Kind of frustrating. But I want you to imagine something with me, and I want to push back on this because this is definitely one of the reasons we're tempted to quit. It absolutely is, but I want to flip your perspective just a little bit. Imagine being a soldier in Israel's army. And imagine you're a little skeptical, a little cynical, kind of one of those soldiers, and you've walked around one time and you're like, all right, God just split that river right there, so I'm going to trust him here. And you walk around a second time and you're like, all right, I'm getting anxious for the miracle. You walk around a third time, you walk around a fourth time. Imagine you got to the 6th day and you were just like, you know what? I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I feel stupid doing it. It is a stupid plan. I'm just going to say it. I know it's God's plan, but I think it's stupid. I think it's dumb. I can't believe we haven't fired an arrow. I can't believe we haven't built a battering ram. I can't believe we haven't fired a single shot. This is dumb. I refuse to keep going. I quit. Imagine that you quit on day 6. Understandable. You hadn't seen any progress and you didn't know how long you had to go. But if you would have quit on day 6, you would have missed the miracle on day 7, right? And it would have been completely understandable. And you know, for the type A achiever, it would have made sense for you to say, I can't do this anymore. But if you quit on day 6, you don't get to experience day 7. So I want to point out that not knowing how long you have to go, yes, it is discouraging, and yes, it can be a reason that makes you want to quit, but also not knowing how long you have to go also means that you don't know how quickly God might be planning to move. That you could be on lap 6 right now, and God can move like that. The thing you're waiting on, the thing that you need a breakthrough on, the thing that you need a miracle for, that you want to see God move in some miraculous way, it could be right around the corner. It could be. And don't you dare sit there and go, oh, what God needs to do in my life is really hard. Oh, is it like a city that has giant walls and gates and like you don't know how to take it? Is it harder than that? Because God did this. It could be right around you could quit on lap 6 and miss out on what God is about to do. So again, I know it's discouraging, but what if you flipped it? What if you flipped your perspective? No one told me how long I had to go, so that might mean God's going to do something real soon. And if this is the place that you're at, look at Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Vital verse if you're in a season of waiting. So let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. So I love this. Every part of this verse is awesome. Let's not get tired of doing what is good. I love that he has to say that because that means it's possible to get tired doing good. And actually, pretty likely that it's going to be a thing that wears on you. That when you're doing the thing that you feel like God's calling you to do, you're loving people that's hard to love, you're putting effort into things that it's really difficult to put effort into, and you're trying to become that person that God is calling you to become, you're going to get tired. You're going to get tired. But here, Paul, who wrote this, is kind of pushing out like, hey, hold on. Because at just the right time, and I love this, at just the right time, you will reap a harvest of blessing. At just the right time. Not your time. Not when you want God to move, not when you demand God move, it's on his time. And God has perfect timing. Perfect timing. At just the right time, you will reap a harvest of blessing. And then that word, if we don't give up. Man, that means that your harvest of blessing is contingent upon you not giving up. Your harvest, slightly terrifying because that means you could put in a whole lot of work, quit, and miss out on the blessing. And you don't get like a partial, you don't get partial credit here. This is kind of a pass. You have to pass or you fail. Like you have to keep going. If you quit, you're not going to experience it. So that's the other thing when I talk to myself about, well, how long is this going to take? Like, I don't want to put in a bunch of work and not get any kind of payoff. Like God said, no, if I don't quit, I'll receive the blessing. And it'll be at just the right time, not my time. I feel like I'm exhausted. I feel like I can't keep going. But God said at just the right time, he will move. So don't quit. You could miss it. You could miss the thing that God's going to do in your life if you quit. One of my favorite Erwin McManus quotes is, I wonder how many times in my life I thought I failed, but all that happened was I quit. How many times in my life I thought I failed, but all that happened was I stopped short. I gave up before God was gonna move. So again, what if that thing that has you really tired right now, what if you're on lap 6? What if you're on lap 6? Now, even if you hit all 3 of these temptations to quit, there's a 4th one that can get you. The 4th thing that can cause the urge to quit in your life is you trusting in your own strength. You trusting in your own strength. Imagine that the Israelite army shows up to Jericho and immediately starts focusing on how tall and strong the walls are and how strong the gates look and how well armed the people look. And they would have started comparing their strength to the strength of the city. Imagine they had sat down and said, should we do this? It looks like a really strong city. Can we? And I think if a very wise council of Israelites would have come to the conclusion, we can't do that. That's beyond us. And if they were trusting in their own strength, they would have had to turn around. They're like, I guess we got to go find somewhere else to be because we can't be here because we can't do that. But God had called them to something that was bigger than they could handle. God had called them to something that was going to require more strength than they had. And that's a huge thing to realize. Now, I don't know what circles you run in, but I kind of live in the church world. And there's a term that gets used in the church world all the time. Maybe it's used in your world too, but man, it's used a lot in the church world. I hear the word burnout a ton in the church world, man. Talk about burnout. I hear about pastors burning out. I hear about church staff burning out. I hear about volunteers burning out. Hear it all the time. And usually when we're talking about it, and I don't mean this in any kind of derogatory way if you feel, maybe you feel burnout right now. Usually when we're talking about being burnout, and like I would do this, I would talk about the situation. The situation has me burnt out. Dealing with this thing has me burnt out. I usually point my focus on the circumstance, and that's why I'm burnt out. But I want to propose something to you. What if burnout is more about fuel than heat? Burnout is more about fuel than heat. And what that would mean is that, think about this. Has any fire ever burnt out because it's too hot? No. Fires burn out because they run out of fuel, not because they get too hot. So I just want to point out, maybe it's not the situation that has you burnt out. Maybe it's that you don't have, the right fuel to keep burning. Maybe that's the real thing. It's not the situation. And I know it's really easy to blame the situation. It's easy to blame, that's too hard and she's too much and he's really mean and this is going on. You can come up with all kinds of circumstantial reasons that I'm just burnt out. But what if it's not really about the circumstance? What if it's about the fuel that you have to be able to keep going? Maybe you're burning the wrong fuel. You have a fuel problem, not a heat problem. Let me show you the fuel that you need. It's in Isaiah chapter 40, starting in verse 29. He, God, gives power to the weak. If you're feeling weak today, he's talking about you. Strength to the powerless. If you're feeling powerless today, he's talking about you. Even youths will become weak and tired. Young men will fail in exhaustion. The people who have it the best will still run out. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength, not the same strength you've been trying to use, the kind of that's already gone. No, you're going to find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not go weary. They will walk and not faint. See, what if your problem is that the fuel you've been trying to use to keep going is all you? You've been trying to run this thing in your own strength. You've been trying to accomplish this thing in your own strength. You've been trying to keep your endurance up with your own strength. And what if God never intended for you to be able to do the thing that he's calling you to do in your own strength? What if he always planned for you to run out? What if he called you to something so big that he knew there was no way you could do it on your own? That means that being tired is actually expected, and you getting to the point where you look up and go, God, I can't do this. That was a part of the plan too. Because God's like, I knew you couldn't. I put you here on purpose because I don't want you to do the whole thing in your strength. If God only called you to do things in your own strength, you would have a very small life. But God's calling you to do something bigger than that. Bigger than you, bigger than your strength, bigger than anything you've ever thought of. You have to find your strength in God. And I just want to point something out. If you're a Christian, it's really weird because we start this Christian journey very much relying on God's strength. It's the definition of a Christian is saying, I can't, you can. I can't pay for my sin, Jesus can. I can't climb my way to God, Jesus climbed down to me. I trust in what Jesus did on the cross for my salvation. God, your strength was necessary, I couldn't do that. You start your Christian journey with that. But isn't it weird how quick we turn from trusting in God's strength to, all right, I've got it from here, God, and you start walking in your own strength. Isn't that weird? And some of you even think that's the right thing. You think all right, God, I got to pay you back for what you did here. Now I've got to do it in my own strength. You almost feel like if you have to rely on God's strength, that means you're failing. That is wrong mentality. You're supposed to rely on his strength. It's supposed to be you relying on him, almost a dance as you go through your whole life. He's calling you to something bigger than you. You can't do it. Man, what if that was like the thing? What if that's the little sentence that God wants to whisper to you today? You can't do it. And I know that sounds like the opposite of encouraging. But what if all that is a testament to how big he's calling you to, whatever the size of the thing he's calling you to? What if that's what that is? If the little whisper in the back of your head, I can't do it, all that means God's calling you something really big. Something really big. And you're going to need him. You're going to need him. And I feel like that's where he wants you. He actually wants you at the end of your rope. He wants you to rely on him. He's going to push you right up to that edge so you have to look up and say, God, I can't do it. He's like, yes, now I can move in your life. Because you've kind of been in the way. You've kind of been trying to do all this stuff in your own strength. You're kind of in the way. You need to get out of the way. Even if you're just falling flat on your face, get out of the way, because now God's going to move in your life. Man, some of you, you're fighting fierce battles today. Some of you are fighting for your marriage. You're fighting for your kids. You're fighting an addiction. Maybe you're fighting for a business. Maybe you're fighting for a dream, fighting for a degree, fighting for purpose, fighting to be the man God has called you to be, fighting to be the woman God has called you to be. And this fight that you're in, it's like harder than you ever thought it would be. And maybe you feel like you're close to the end of your rope, almost burnt out. And you feel like Satan's almost smiling at you, like he's got you right where he wants you, right on the edge. All he's got to do is push and you're just going to fall. He thinks you're going to quit. But man, what if you did the thing that this verse said? What if you put your trust in the Lord and you found some new strength? Not yours. All of a sudden you've got a different kind of strength, not the strength you've been relying on, but now it's a God strength. It's a trust strength. It's a faith strength. It's a leaning on God every day strength. And yeah, that's actually kind of a one day at a time strength, by the way. God doesn't give you like a stockpile of that. He gives it one day at a time, and you're gonna have to rely on him just like that. And won't Satan be surprised when you go past that day where he thought he was going to push you just far enough for you to throw in the towel? Be like, how are they still going? Oh, they found it. And it wasn't in here. It was there. It was in this connection. I want to show you what happens on day 7. Can't read the story of Jericho without showing the end. Verse 20. When the people heard the sound of the ram's horn, they shouted as loud as they could. Man, what a release that must have been. Remember, they had to stay silent the whole time. Joshua wouldn't let them talk at all. And then boom, they let out this battle cry. Suddenly the walls of Jericho collapsed. The Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it. 6 days, no evidence. 6 days, no idea how long we had to keep going. And they finally get to that 7th day, and that 7th lap, they let out this roar, and God just moves, and the city just crumbles. Not one shred of evidence before that moment, and then God just moves. Don't give up. Don't give up on your marriage. It's impossible, maybe. God can do impossible things. It's like his specialty. Don't give up on it. Don't give up on your kids. God can do miracles. Don't give up on your teenagers. God can do miracles. Don't give up on your sobriety. You failed one day. Don't make it a week. Don't make it a month. Keep going, keep going. Get back up, get back up, get back up. Don't give up on your dream. What, you're a little older now, so? God can still move. Don't give up on your purpose. What, you feel like you've taken a couple of wrong turns? Don't you dare give up. God knew you were going to take those wrong turns. He's right there waiting for you. Turn back. At just the right time, you will reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. So last week, if you were here, we talked about the people of Israel crossing over into the promised land. And there was that first step. Remember, the step to start something. They stepped into the water and then the water parted. They had to have the faith to start. And I used to really be impressed with people who started things. Being a pastor, I like people who were like church planners blew my mind. Like you could go just drop into a church or drop into a city and start a church. Like that was nuts to me. Or people who are like the entrepreneurs who are just like, oh, there's a business and you just start something. Like, that's amazing. Or even starting a new thing like school or some journey. Like, man, I was always impressed with people who had the faith to start something. But now, as I keep going, I realize that what we're talking about is not the faith to start, but the faith to keep going. And it's a little different flavor of faith. This one's really exciting, and it's like a big adrenaline rush to take that first step into something like, oh, I'm still here. Like that's a huge kind of step of faith. But man, this one, it's not even just one step, it's a lot of steps, right? It's that each step is a step of faith. And it's a trust thing, it's a deep thing, and it's a grinding thing where I'm gonna keep trusting in God, even though I'm still walking, and I didn't think I'd be still walking. The faith to finish. Man. And that's the faith you need to see God move in those kind of ways. I wonder how many times in my life I thought I failed, but actually all that happened was I quit. Let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, you will reap a harvest of blessing if you don't give up. Whatever it is that's got you down, whatever it is that's got you tired, don't you dare quit. God's up to something. Pray with me. Lord, I pray for the person who walked in here tired to the point that it had them almost throwing in the towel. Maybe they even decided to quit already, Lord. I pray that you would rewrite that. Awaken something in their soul right now. You brought them here for a reason. They're hearing this for a reason. You're saying, hold on. You're saying, don't quit. Don't give up yet. I know you don't see progress yet, but that doesn't mean he's not moving. I know you don't know how long you have to go, but that means it could be right around the corner. You've been walking in your own strength. Rely on his. Lord, I pray that we would rely on yours. I pray for the person who feels like they've been walking too long. I pray for the person who's been walking in their own strength. Lord, I pray that they would put their trust, their faith in you, that you right now would give them a little spark, a little breath of life to keep going. Lord, and I pray for this church. I pray this church will be full of people who just won't quit. There would be a marker, like a characteristic of this church. People who stubbornly have a long obedience in the same direction. We just won't. Until you tell us to stop, we don't stop. We want to see you move, Lord, at just the right time. Help us to trust that at just the right time. In Jesus' name I pray.